thank you for coming today to this, to the final of the Europe Direct Soapbox debating competition on the topic of wind power, the future or blot on the landscape. My name is Barbara Nolan. I'm head of the European Commission representation here in Ireland. I would like to introduce you to the judges for this competition. On my right, your left, is Professor John Sweeney of the National University of Ireland, Maynooth, who is a climate change expert. Next to him we have Dr Brian Motherway, who is Chief Operations Officer at the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, the SEAI. And finally we have Dr Padraig Murphy from DCU, who is a research fellow in the School of Communications. His recent work has focused on deliberative and participatory dialogue models for sustainable technologies. So we have some eminent people today for the judging of the soapbox competition.
Our government set a target of 40% of generation from renewables by 2020. Given the current status of renewable technologies, a significant proportion of this is likely to be from onshore wind energy. According to Airbrid's latest generation adequacy report, this is by no means unachievable. And so it shouldn't be. Ireland's location in the upper mid-latitudes of the Eastern Atlantic Ocean bestows us with perhaps the greatest wind resource in Europe. But I stand before you today to draw your attention to the potential cost. Carbon footprints, carbon budgets and carbon taxes have become bywords of the modern era. It is worth noting that peatlands are the greatest carbon store on Earth, containing almost 30% of global land-based carbon. The optimal sites for wind farms are upland regions with a good wind regime and large tracts of open space. But these wet and windy slopes are also ideal for peat formation. An Bord Nála subsequently issued guidelines on wind farm developments with special reference to peatlands. But despite this, the Ballincollig slide of August 2008 is the fourth such event directly attributed to wind farm construction. Wind energy has enormous potential and is deserving of its place in our future energy strategy. However, it is essential that potential sites are carefully assessed so that we minimise disruption to the natural functioning of peatland ecosystems. It would be folly to squander one of our greatest natural resources in a rush to develop another. Thank you.
As I lay awake last night, wondering what on earth I was going to say here today, I could hear the wind outside. All that energy going to waste, while we spend money we don't have importing fossil fuels. Wind is a self-importing fuel. All we have to do is harness it and distribute the energy. Just 12 large turbines with a total capacity of 60 megawatts. That's enough to supply 50,000 households. Critics will tell you wind power is unreliable. The wind doesn't blow all the time. And they're right. We do have calm days, occasionally. Just like we have oil shortages, water scarcity, thunderstorms, power cuts, volcanic ash. These things happen. We cope with suitable backup systems. How do we reduce our carbon emissions, our dependence on fossil fuels, our wasteful lifestyle, and make this world a safer, cleaner, healthier place for our children and their children? In the words of Bob Dylan, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Madam Chairman.
Go green or go bust. It's as simple as that. Every year we import 60% of our energy needs in the form of oil. In the middle of a global downturn, oil is trading at $80 a barrel. As China and India grow and consumption increases, it won't matter if we haven't reached peak oil production. It won't matter if the Brazilians find another 10 fields. It won't matter If we drill all over the Arctic and Antarctic, the price of oil will go up. At current prices, we are sending $5.5 billion out of the country. At peak prices, that's more than $10 billion every year. $10 billion. We need an alternative, and we need it quick. It's not hard. We have to use what works and work with what we have. Wind works, and we have wind. We are the windiest place in Europe. We are the Saudi Arabia of wind. We can become a net exporter of energy, and green energy at that. Remember, the turbines are carbon neutral after only 13 months deployed. The old problems of storage are being overcome as we speak. The Germans are turning wind into synthetic natural gas. In the States, using compressed air, they will be able to store up to 300 megawatts of power. We can construct giant hydro wind plants right now. We need to grab the natural advantages that geography has given us and invest in becoming a global wind power. Some find the turbines ugly. I don't. Surely they are prettier than the coal burners or nuclear plants, or polluted air, or dead rivers, or radioactive seas. If we want to keep the lights on, we may all say together, blow, wind, blow.
Renewables are the future of energy, both in this nation and around the world. Wind energy is the ultimate green and clean energy. It has no harmful effects on the environment, as it does not produce any pollutants, harmful gases, waste products, or radioactivity. Imagine an oil-soaked seascape full of dead marine life. Take the recent Gulf of Mexico disaster, for example. Think of the devastation this disaster inflicted on our green Earth. Now imagine a world where the green hills are dotted with majestic wind turbines. Which would you prefer? The dystopian grey of a ravaged planet, or the utopian green of a pollutant-free Earth? Wind energy is one of the most abundant forms of power, and production of wind energy is getting cheaper and cheaper. So in these recessionary times, surely it would be a much wiser decision to invest in this form of energy. Wind energy could theoretically meet global demand, yet in 2009 it provided just 2% of the power consumed. We should all aim to increase these figures. We simply must balance our demand for energy with our rapidly shrinking resources. As the poet Robert Frost once said, we are at a point where two roads diverge in a yellow wood. We find ourselves faced with the choice between two different futures. The time to choose is upon us. The time to act is now. We must control our future instead of letting the future control us. Wind energy is picking up speed. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I see that Minister John Gormley has joined us. Minister Gormley is, of course, the Minister for Environment, Heritage and Local Government. And as I mentioned earlier, when the Minister would arrive, we will just take a little break in the soapbox, and then we will allow the Minister to speak and resume the soapbox afterwards. So welcome, Minister Gormley.
And I don't want to delay you any further in your debate here. I was very impressed with what I've heard so far, and I was just reminded my own school days when we did have debates in school, and interestingly enough I never partook, but it would have been a handy skill to have as I progressed in my own career in politics. And maybe there were many budding politicians here today as well, and I hope that you will be well informed from today's events. I'd like to thank everybody who's been involved, the chairperson for the competition, Barbara Nolan, director of the European Commission representation here in Ireland. I'd also like to thank Corla Larna and the staff of the Public Library Service. And I think the level of public interest generated by the competition clearly shows how library personnel in their ongoing their ongoing professional activities, particularly as information providers, are ideally placed to assist EU engagement with citizens at a local level. I'd also like to thank our judges, our distinguished judges who are here today, Professor John Sweeney of the Department of Geography, Dr Brian Motherway, Chief Operations Officer of SEAI, and Dr Padraig Murphy, School of Communications in DCU, is the future. But it can be, if it's not done properly, a blot on the landscape. And as Minister for the Environment, I am responsible, obviously, for climate change. John Sweeney was with me about a year ago. We were heading towards Copenhagen. And the way to tackle climate change is, of course, through more renewables. We have a very ambitious target of 20% by 2020. That is certainly achievable. But in order to do that, we have to build more wind turbines. Sometimes we have to build them in very sensitive areas. And the areas that I'm responsible for, SACs, Special Areas of Conservation, SPAs, these are the special protection areas for birds. Many times, on many occasions, we have to place the wind turbines in these areas. And, you know, there is, believe it or not, quite a lot of cement that has to go in, trucks going through, and so we have to do this. And so I find myself in conflict. I'm conflicted on this because I have to sit down with my colleague, the Minister for Energy and Communications, Eamon Ryan, and we sit down and we ask ourselves, how are we going to do this in a way which ensures that we preserve our landscape, that we preserve our sensitive habitats and species. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the way forward. That is the way we have to do it, because we do know as well, in terms of tourism, that our landscape is absolutely vital. And that's why, as Minister for the Environment, for the very first time, I'm introducing a landscape strategy in this country. And areas which are of outstanding beauty, areas which are, for example, archaeologically sensitive. All of these areas are important landscapes which have to be preserved. So we'll have the landscape strategy. We're going to also have a new national monuments legislation. The new planning legislation which we've brought in will ensure that planning is done in a much more responsible way in the future, so that we can integrate our concerns for renewable energy with concern for preserving our fantastic landscape, which is so important in terms, as I said, of tourism. So again, I'd like to congratulate all of the participants, the judges. I know that all of you, and certainly what I witnessed just there, that you've made maximum use of your 3-minute slot. Congratulations to all of you. Maybe I should mention you by name, all of you. Colin O'Lee, Matthew Higgins, Michael Dwyer from Wexford, Cy McCann from Dundalk, from Letterkenny, Emer Henderson, Nancy Carter and Owen Costello. To all of you I say congratulations, keep up the good work, and maybe someday you'll be in Dáil Éireann, and it will be a Dáil Éireann, I hope, that will be fully independent, no loss of sovereignty, and as we, I think you are the future, and I look forward to listening to the debate later on and seeing what the contributions are. So again, congratulations and thank you very much.